We had to go to the Supreme Court and ask for our rights back. But I'm telling you right now, that's what Dianne Feinstein, Dick Durbin, and Schumer all want us to do. And we're not going to do it anymore. All right? Stand up! Let's go!
Congress is mentally ill!
Right now, you have people in the Golden Dome over there that are trying to take your rights away from you. You have people in your very towns that are trying to take your rights away from you. I want you to know that this is an organized effort across the United States. We sued the Brady campaign about 10 years ago. They sued us, actually. And in the testimony, which I heard, was under every week they have a meeting, phone meeting. They coordinate efforts all across the United States and our nation. Every week. So if you think they're not organized, you are wrong. They are organized.
Everybody claims to love, but most people have never read.
Money and many others like that. So you've got to realize what you're facing. This is not an easy enemy. They want to subjugate. Don't let them do that.
Okay, in the world I live in, words mean things. We have definitions for words.
Thank you.
As to detract from it, as to disparage it, as to make
guys, we gotta give Rich another applause. He flew in yesterday. Unfortunately, he's gonna fly back. I don't think he's gonna fit any better here. Listen, be bright and bring up our next guest speaker to this. There's something I think we need to solve.
I would just urge everybody out there to do research on the old papers and see that we are actually not, an organization that is dangerous in any way, shape, or form. We are just a bunch of peace loving folks.
I think we probably need to solve that right here. Gun owners actually believe that the Second Amendment is a civil right. It's an inalienable right that is not given to us by our government, that is given to us by our Creator, that is our God-given right to defend ourselves and our family. Are you with us on that? Gun owners actually believes that all lawful citizens of this Commonwealth and this country, regardless of race, creed, where they come from, where they live, should be able to exercise that civil right. Are you with us on that? We also believe that prohibited persons, violent felons, people who have severe mental illnesses that are a danger to themselves and others should not have access to not only guns, but anything else that could harm themselves or others. Are you with us on that? Gun owners actually believes that the only argument that even exists for universal background checks is because our government fails on a daily basis to handle the human criminal element that's walking our city streets every day. Are you with us on that? All right, good. Well, one more thing. Gun owners actually believes what they call an assault weapon, we call a rifle, and what they call a clip, we call a magazine. Are you with us on that one? That's what I figured. Okay, we got that straightened out. Now we can move on. Our next guest speaker is Yang Lee, and he's going to talk to you about being a U.S. citizen and the civil rights that he enjoys. Yang Lee.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Jim. My name is Yang Lee, and I'm a proud member of the GOLD, and I'm a proud Massachusetts gun owner. First of all, I'd like to thank GOLD for organizing this event, and also I'd like to thank both these shooters for providing us a forum to be able to communicate with each other and put actions together, put a gathering together. And last, I'd like to say that I became a proud member of JPFO lately, and even though, as you can tell, I'm not a Jewish, but I figured here today that probably will like the company of a Chinese Gentile in the fight for our freedom. Last summer, I started teaching my children the sports of shooting. And for the guys, for the people here with a good eyesight, and that you can see here, this is my 6-year-old son. son's very first target. And after the event, he proclaimed very proudly, he said, "Daddy, next time we go on a business trip, any of them, if there's a bad guy come to our house, I'm going to use my rifle to protect mommy and sister."
Fantastic, yeah, I'll do that.
That 6-year-old boy did not read DC versus Heller decision. But I think that he knew that using a firearm to protect yourself, to protect your family, is an individual right. Unfortunately, I didn't have the heart to tell the boy. I didn't say this, but according to MGL, Chapter 140, Section 131L, that the gun has to be locked up and he's not going to have access to it until 10 years later when he gets his FID. That's the world that we live in. And, well, just in case anybody gets any ideas, that when I do go on business trips and there is mommy, who's also a gun owner, a naturalized citizen, and she is a pretty damn good shot. So the mama bear in the house will not hesitate to use the claws of liberty to defend her cubs. Let's give a big hand to all the mama bears in the crowd today. We're proud of you. Let's save the target here. Thank you. Why am I bringing up children? Because, as our opponents often say, it's all for the children. The reason why we're here today is because we want to preserve this cherished right so we can pass the right on to them and them to their children. And I would like to quote President Ronald Reagan said one time, "Freedom is never more than one generation away from its extinction. We didn't pass it to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same. Or one day, we will spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children that what it was once like in the United States when men were free." I don't plan on telling my grandchildren that sobbing story. Do you? No! I've come across two arguments from the other side. And one is that tyranny would never happen here. And the other, even if it did, an armed citizenry is powerless to stop it. First of all, tyranny not only can happen here, it has done so many times already. Among many examples, I'd like to underscore what happened in 1942, when thousands of U.S. citizens of Japan descent were sent to internment camps. They were stripped completely of their constitutional rights, and the Supreme Court, which was supposed to provide checks and balances of the executive power, was more than happy to uphold FDR's executive order. The ruling was eventually overturned. Apologies and $20,000 restitution were issued 40 years later to each survivor. Think about that for a minute. If you know you're heading to a camp of unknown fate, would you count your hope on an apology coming 40 years later? Or would you like to grab your rifle and full capacity magazines, fight for your life, your rights, and your freedom? Some would say, but our government is better today. We have a constitutional government and separation of power. We have a democratic voting process, so it will never happen again. Then what do you call it when a sniper bullet killed a nursing mother, Vicky Weaver, while holding her 10-month-old baby? All because a shotgun barrel was allegedly little shorter than 18 inches. What do you call when you are threatened with jail sentences just because you're living and breathing but did not purchase a government-sanctioned healthcare insurance? And what do you call when a TSA agent sticking her hand down your daughter's jeans, all for the benefit of your safety? And what do you call when politicians enacting federal and state statutes to make schools defenseless zones and then pointing their bloody fingers at you every time a madman goes on a rampage? Every time government passes new gun control laws, it creates new problems, either by design or unintended consequences. What we see here is a pattern that government creates a problem that use that problem to take our rights away. Tyranny doesn't always come in the form of 6 mechanized divisions marching towards city center, as I witnessed once before. Tyranny likes to push your limit just a little to see if it can gain a little ground. In the 1700s, it was a little extra tax on tea. What's the big deal? Or 700 regulars marching to confiscate cannons and gunpowder. After all, why would anybody need a cannon? Why do you need more than 2 pounds of gunpowder? It's all common sense restriction, isn't it? Tyranny of the majority, my friend, is 2 wolves and a lamb voting on what to have for dinner. And liberty is a well-armed lamb to protest the vote. The wolves in New York and Connecticut have voted already that the lamb can have any gun that she wants as long as it's a single-shot rifle. And now the wolves in Massachusetts are salivating. And here we are, and we're here to tell the wolves, not in the Capitol buildings and governors' mansions across the country, we will not comply. We will not surrender. We will not give up. Moulin Abbey, come and take it. Come and take it. Many of you here have heard this quote by the authors of Gulag Archipelago, Mr. Alexander Solzhenitsyn. What would things have been like if every security operative, when he went out at night to make an arrest, had been uncertain whether he would return alive and had to say goodbye to his family? Or if, during periods of mass arrests, as for example in Leningrad, when they arrested a quarter of the entire city, people had not simply sat in their lairs, paling with terror at every bend of the downstairs and every step in the staircase, but had understood they had nothing left to lose and had boldly set up downstairs hall of an ambush, a dozen people with axes, hammers, pokers, or whatever else they have at hand. The organs would quickly have suffered a shortage of officers and transport, and notwithstanding of all Stalin's bloodthirst, the cursed machine would have ground to a halt if we didn't love freedom enough. And even more, we had no awareness of the real situation. We purely and simply deserved everything that happened afterward. By the time Posse Comitatus is declared null and void, and we have soldiers ready to march on the U.S. soil in armored columns, it would have been too late. The time to fight tyranny is to kill it at its infancy. I'm going to tell it like it is. The Second Amendment is not for hunting or sporting.
It is to guarantee citizens for righteous killings. When the terror of the state is descending upon your doorsteps, would you rather fight back with a cooking knife, a fireplace poker, or a rifle with a bunch of standard capacity magazines? Tyranny needs 3 necessary ingredients: tyrants who are unconstrained, enforcers who will blindly follow the law, and victims who are unable or unwilling to defend themselves. We just learned that wolves in New York are fixing the law that the new gun control law, police officer will be exempt from the magazine limit. How considerate of the wolves. When they send their enforcers to remove your instrument of freedom, not only they want you to be outnumbered, they want you to be outgunned. What I love about this country is that the people can protect our liberty using 4 boxes: soap box, ballot box, jury box, and ammo box. We're here to exercise our First Amendment rights and stir up the soapbox. Later, we'll organize and concentrate our efforts to remove the lawmakers who dare to infringe our rights. And if unjust laws are passed, we promise to yell them impotent by jury nullification. And last, we reserve our right to reach to our ammo box. And thank you. God bless America.
You know, a lot of what he said is right. We saved that for the last, but I want to tell you a real quick story. Just last week, I was in a debate with somebody from the other side. Let's just leave it at that. And they said, Jim, come on, when you get right down to it, you guys talk about, forming a militia, the right to keep and bear arms, and taking on the U.S. government. Do you guys really think you could take on the U.S. Air Force if it came down to that? And I just looked down the table and said, who said they're on your side?
Oh, yeah! Oh, keep it! Yeah! Oh, keep it!
What was
Attack Second Amendment rights. I get to speak to a lot of audiences who don't always agree with me. Unlike a group like you, where we're all sympathetic to our cause and our rights. And when I speak to them, I like to ask them a question. What has 4 legs and chases cats? Can you answer that? A dog, sorry, no. The correct answer is Mrs. Katz and her attorney. The point I'm trying to make is sometimes in the gun control and gun rights debate, things aren't always the way they appear to be. Let me give you just a couple quick examples. Back when they passed the Brady Bill and gave us a national waiting period, the anti-gunners did that because they figured that if we made it more difficult for you and I to be able to buy a firearm, they'd sell less firearms. They sold less firearms, there'd be less gun stores. If there were less gun stores, there'd be less gun manufacturers, and there'd be less guns made and sold to all of us. Well, what happened? We opposed it, of course, because a right delayed is a right denied, as Dr. Martin Luther King said. But what was the net effect of this? Gun stores don't have a whole lot of foot traffic. So when people had to go back in a second time to pick up their gun, what happened? Well, they bought more ammo, they bought accessories, and they bought more guns. And gun sales really didn't go down, they went up. Sometimes things aren't the way they appear to be. And it's definitely the case in this gun control debate. Another example. 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, time flies, when they passed the assault weapon ban. What happened? Well, in the year they debated it, they sold a 10-year supply of those firearms in 1 year. Basically, they accelerated the amount of guns tenfold, and they took no guns away from anybody that had one, right? Well, that wasn't exactly what the anti-gunners really wanted to do, was it? But things aren't as the way they appear to be. And the funny thing happened. Crime rates went down with those firearms. They didn't go up, even though there was a 10-year supply sold in 1 year. Things aren't the way they appear to be. These are not the results that the opponents of gun ownership want. but they never seem to learn from history. What do those pushing on the gun rights agenda really want as their end game? Illinois Democratic Congresswoman Janet Schakowsky wants to make one thing very clear. The attempt to ban so-called assault weapons is only the beginning of their planned attack on the Second Amendment. Schakowsky made these comments to a reporter at the 1 Billion Rising Women's Rights Rally in February. Referring to Sandy Hook tragedy, she said, and I quote, "A moment of opportunity," end quote. Schakowsky went on to say that everything is on the table. There's no question about it. We're on a roll now, and I think we've got to push as hard as we can and as fast as we can. When pressed on exactly what she meant, Schakowsky noted that her choice for the next ban would be handguns, followed by allowing individual communities to deny Second Amendment rights to those who live or travel within their boundaries. I'm sure that even now, she's being chastised by the White House for letting the truth slip. But make no mistake about it, it's the truth and it's the ultimate goal of the Democratic Party.
We will not comply!
After all, Representative Schakowsky isn't a newly elected rookie. She's a member of the Democratic leadership, serving as chief deputy whip, as well as sitting on the steering committee for policy committee, which is instrumental in formulating the party platform and its strategy. So remember those words of hers when you hear Democrats parroting the party line that they support the Second Amendment subject to reasonable restrictions, or when you hear Democratic friends constantly tell you that no one wants to take away your guns. Because I have news for you. They do want to take away your semi-automatic rifle. They do want to take away your handgun. And once they've taken those away, then your single-shot shotgun suddenly becomes a close-quarters combat weapon, and they want to take that too. Don't believe me? Just ask Congresswoman Schakowsky. At least she was honest enough to admit it. The only thing that stands in her way is the opposition of us and a unified Republican Party that controls the House of Representatives. And believe me, gun owners know who their friends are. So don't be surprised when the Democrats lose control of the United States Senate in 2014. Just like they lost control of Congress in 1994, the last time they pushed gun control. Democrats need to be reminded of that, and we need to look ahead to the 2014 midterm elections. Remember these numbers. There are 33 seats up for election in the U.S. Senate, 20 of which are now held by Democrats. 13 are in states with a strong pro-gun rights culture. 10 of those voted for Romney for president. Gun control is going to cost them control of the Senate. Democrats never learn from history, and we gun owners never forget history. Let's take a look at the current battlefield. Our rights are being attacked in a number of so-called blue states: Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Illinois, Colorado, Maryland, and yes, Massachusetts. In Congress, we're seeing an assault on the Second Amendment like we've never seen in decades. At the UN, they have no respect for our Constitution or our sovereignty. In the courts, not a single Obama-nominated judge has ruled in favor of your Second Amendment rights. And in the court of public opinion, the media is acting like judge, jury, and executioner. Add to that the tens of millions of dollars that billionaire New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg is spending right now to steal your firearms freedom. And we have our work cut out for us. I know you're up to the task. I'm proud to stand with you, and we are gonna win. Thank you.
All right, give it up one more time. Alan flew all the way from the West Coast just to be with us today. How's that, huh? Outstanding, outstanding. The wind was going, you know, there's Christine Wilkins is down here. She's going to kill me for recognizing her, but she's holding a pretty good sign. The wind kicked up. I thought Christine was going to go. So if you see her going that way, just grab her before she hits the State House, all right? Anyway, listen, another guest speaker is one of our newest board members who's come on to help Goal charge to the future and to make sure that we're protecting your civil rights and the civil rights of our kids to come. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Bob Pepe.
Thank you, Jim. And thank
everybody here for showing up. You know, there's a saying, we've tossed a lot of sayings around out here, and the one that I want to toss out is, for evil to flourish, all it takes is for good men to do nothing. Yes. Pat yourselves on the back, you're doing something. You are here. The cameras are looking at you. The State House is looking at you. Activism on the internet is a wonderful thing. It allows us to talk to one another. It allows us to get our message out to people who might not hear it. But it only goes so far. What it takes, what they listen to, is the ballot box, is the voters, are the people showing up and saying, this is what I believe, this is who I am, and this is how I'm going to vote. You heard Alan say, let's make them remember in 2014, just like we did 20 years ago in '94, the cost of trying to take our rights away. Don't forget to do that. You know, when I got my first gun, I had never heard of goal. I had no idea what goal was. A very dear friend of my father's gifted me with my membership, and I've been very involved ever since. So I'm going to challenge each and every one of you out there. Yes, I'm going to shill for goal right at the moment, but that's okay because we're sponsoring it. Find someone you know who doesn't belong, who is not a member of goal, and gift them with a membership. Because if we want them to listen to us, we need the numbers. We need the votes. Because we have a long road to hoe here in Massachusetts, don't we? Yeah. We don't have big billboards outside of Fenway. We don't have the talking heads. We've got some good ones now, but let's be frank. The people who allow that message to go out there, the people with the cameras, with the to the press, aren't our friends. They're not. So in order for us to get out there, in order for us to be heard, we need the numbers in the ballot box. We need to have the numbers so we can say no. Say it with me. No. When they ask for common sense gun laws, what are we going to say? No. When they ask for reasonable restrictions, what are we going to say? No. Absolutely. Remember in 2014, remember who you vote for. Look at their records. Look at the candidate bios from Golan for the NRA. And remember who it is that is voting to take your rights away and who it is that's trying to preserve your rights. Thanks, everybody. Thank you for coming here.
Thank you.
And probably you're going to say, Jim, what the heck are you doing with a piece of the Gettysburg Address? But I want you to listen to the last part of this address and set aside the Civil War from your mind when you listen to it. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have so far thus nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us. That these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause which they gave the last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that the government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from this earth. We know what that speech was originally written about, but I tell you what, I read that speech all the time, from beginning to end. Because, again, setting aside the Civil War and thinking about what just happened in Newtown, what President Lincoln was saying then on the hill up at Gettysburg was, in the face of great tragedy, do you have what it takes to continue to be an American? Do you have what it takes to defend freedom, even in the face of great horror? Or will you shrink from that challenge and allow tyranny to come over you, to swallow you, to take away your rights because there was a major tragedy. I say no. I say we have the guts to move forward. We have the guts to be Americans the way our forefathers and our foremothers were. Are you with us on that? Do we have the courage to face up to the people who would take our rights away from us, to take our rights away from our children, and put us in further danger? Are you with us on that one? Yes! Ladies and gentlemen, I cannot tell you how proud I am that you are here today on a work day, freezing your tails off. And I just had one of the reporters behind me, by the way, that said, "Boy, you're a hardy man, you got a suit on." I said, "Yeah, so is the long underwear under the suit." Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to wrap up this part of our session. I am so proud to represent you in the Golden Dome up here. I am so proud to have the ability to travel this state and this country and talk about the freedom lovers that we still have in the state of Massachusetts. And if you would join me once we get gathered up a little bit to walk up to the State House and talk to some of the people up there about our civil rights. And oh, by the way, if you've noticed, there wasn't any legislative speakers today. We just learned last night that the Speaker of the House actually called a formal session for 11 o'clock this morning. You know, there's just little coincidences in life that you have to deal with. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. So honored. Gun Owners Action League is so honored. Let's walk up to the State House and see if we can talk to a few people. Thank you.
I state your name.
Rachel
Baby
Takala.
Swanson. Do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America.
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
That I bear true faith and allegiance to the same. And I take this obligation freely. Without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion. Pledging my life, my fortune, and my sacred honor. So help me God. Thank you very much. And we do have a few t-shirts left.
You can go in the entrance, and the public can go in right now to the meeting that's being held, and everyone is welcome to go ahead in. To your right.
Yeah, you're gonna take.
I will not be there left.
Johnny, it was nice talking to you. Thanks. We'll catch up with
Our willingness to speak out and not care about what others think of us, by our willingness to not only correspond with representatives, but do stuff like this, we are preserving that liberty, because the government does not get away with unconstitutional laws if the people are awake and aware.